Hello YouTube, thanks for joining in. So more in our series of perspectives on religion and the psychologies of religion. Last part in the series, I think. It just recently dawned on me that, you know something? I have never spoken about Buddhism or Hinduism before. And you know, like anything else, I'm going to give them a little attention also. Now, for the trolls out there, I want to say first of all, I know it's not a religion in terms of the monotheistic faiths, alright? It's a philosophy, a way of life. Or is it? Because I could argue semantically that it is a religion in terms of, well, on many parameters. For example, there's no central deity, but given the fact that Buddha came from the Hindu, the previous Hindu tradition and took it in his own direction, but he's still the personage at the center of it and adored by people and a center of focus. So this is interesting because he said, I am not a god, but yet why then do we have the great statues and the nice, like the picture behind me? That's the point. In its philosophy of, well, in terms of eternal life, they call it reincarnation, do they not? And so, yeah, that's a way of recycling. I think psychologically it's equally as absurd, or if not more absurd, you know, then it's just the whole point of they don't want to die either, so they're not above that. Yes, indeed, we could point to modern examples of it, you know. You have someone as glorified as the Dalai Lama, for example, in Tibet. It's a bit like, for example, even though I hate comparing them in the same group, but it's a bit like, you know, Scientology has Tom Cruise, and Buddhism or the Dalai Lama needed its celebrity, so Richard Gere stuck into the place, because I think Richard thinks that the sun shines out of the Dalai Lama's ass. I rather take the perspective of Christopher Hitchens, that the Dalai Lama, lovely, happy, smiley fellow that he is, the great persecuted, is actually the head of a theocracy, almost like a medieval feudal system on his own. I'm not defending China's record regarding Tibet at all, but you know, from a secular humanist point of view, I can almost understand their frustration at the fact that he's basically the head of like his royal circle, and people certainly in the past lived as peasants under that system. Tibet is also hugely underdeveloped, and that's not because, and even before, you know, the Chinese regime put pressure on them. Also, I might add in that, whereby it seems very exotic and very beautiful to Western minds, and it's kind of very trendy. At least it was. It's had its, you know, since the time of the hippies even. It became a real big fad. I think it's just as a reaction to Western monotheistic religions. However, I would say to people that this wonderful, innocent, meditative philosophy also suggests, in its crudest terms, completely turning your back on the universe. You know, for Buddha, trying to understand the universe was basically like a dog chasing its own tail. Pointless. Which, if you think about it, do I have to spell it out? In the Greek Western civilization, we are completely the opposite. I wouldn't be speaking to you on the internet through this camera right now if we had listened to Buddha, because there would be no science, no inquisitiveness. Just live in abject ignorance. And I should say that it's a very parasite type religion slash philosophy, because yes, lots and lots of peasants would toil and work away hard, you know, to support the Buddhist monks. They still do so today. But it seemed to be this great calling, and it's like I can hear even the most militant of atheists out there saying, you know, Sky, leave them alone for Christ's sake. They're different, they're Buddhist. They're not really, if you analyse it. As I say, I take the Christopher Hitchens perspective on it. Sam Harris often talks about the Jains. Jainism, Google it if you don't know. Totally harmless, absolutely. The ultimate in pacifism and non-violence. And he's used that argument in contrasting it against suicide bombers or Christian fundamentalists killing abortion doctors. Fine, I understand that, that's good. But however, let's turn the page one more time. Jains are afraid to almost psychotically afraid to walk on the ground for fear that they'd stamp on an ant or something. You know, they wear masks or something on their face so that they might, I don't know, breathe in bacteria or something for the fear of killing any living organism. Is that a good thing, or is it a bit extreme? Now, as I say, they're not killing people, they're not suicide bombers, but I just think that's a little bit psychotic and not very... It doesn't bother you and me in our daily life, but that's a little bit psychotic. I would bring it on one further step, and it's a bit of a leap, but I would say to you that the one major thing that stands out for us, whether in Hinduism, but well, particularly Buddhism, is the whole vegetarian, vegan thing. Very harmless, you say. What the hell does it matter to you and me? Right. You could be vegetarian out there or vegan, that's fine. And you don't represent some of the more extreme elements. But there are extreme elements, and again, in the religious psychosis that can manifest where people can focus on something, there are many of those kind of people inspired by that way of thinking in groups like the Animal Rights Action Network and others, you know, who are violently, and I mean violently, opposed to any abuse or perceived abuse of animals. The normal processing of farm animals, they're militantly against shooting animals of any kind, or hunting. In fact, I used to shoot myself. Here's a little picture from some time ago with my ex-wife. But I would say this, because they're so militantly against it, is that we had an obsession when we used to shoot things. Pheasant, pigeons, rabbits. And rabbits are classed as vermin, by the way. We took no pleasure in the animal suffering. That wasn't the point. The point was to have a clean kill. It's the country code. So it's not murdering and torturing this animal. And I mention that because, as I say, really, it is like a religious fundamentalist hostility, a lack of tolerance to people who do engage in country sports. But they forget sometimes is that, you know, in our very formation as human beings, that's why we have canine teeth, that's why our eyes face forward, that's how our brains are the size they are. Because in our formation hundreds of thousands of years ago, indeed up to 15, 20,000 years ago and continuing, I mean, it was by eating animal flesh and fat and marrow from their bones that, you know, and fish oils and those kind of things in our evolution that our brains expanded and grew the way they did in the first place. You cannot divorce yourself from that. We kill animals, we hunt, we are hunters, we have always hunted. It's just that these hypocrites these days, you know, they walk in and the turkey or the chicken is all nicely packaged for them. I mean, someone had to kill it. They don't mind that so much. Well, I mean, of course, the fanatics would mind that. They don't eat meat, of course, of any kind. Or eggs, or even milking a cow is an abuse of the animal for them. So this is an area, as I say, I call religious fundamental lunacy. It's just insane. I mean, I could cover this an awful lot more. You know, the fact of hunters, just imagine pheasant hunting, for example. I was in a gun club. I would say to you this on the question of pheasants alone. It's just that those animals are there because we paid for them, we bred them, and then we culled X amount of them after a time. In terms of pheasants, you know, they're ground animals. They'd be killed by wild dogs or foxes anyway on the ground. And you go out there with the dog and a shotgun, and it's damn hard work, as they have a very 50-50 chance of getting away. Even with the chasers, you know what I mean? But even so, okay, you can double the numbers, triple the numbers to get them. But as I say, it's not to wipe them out of extinction. They wouldn't exist unless we farmed them. And it's a quick kill. It's not like you tie the pheasant down and torture it to death, you know, painfully for as long as possible. So I think it is a fundamentalism. I think a lot of people, it's like for them, I think maybe it's like they grow up on, like the images here you see behind me of Bambi. Really, you know, where Bambi and Thumper and all those guys had human voices and a human personality and human feelings. That was 1942. But I honestly think that these people, honestly, you know, I made this separation in my head. I liked Bambi when I was a kid as well. It's like, if we don't kill any animals, if you live in a city, You're no more than about 50 meters from a family of rats somewhere. And not to dramatize it, and we kill rats all the time. Because they are dangerous and they carry disease. So the point is, it's like, what they're suggesting, that we don't kill any form of vermin. We never cull any form of vermin. So I guess the vegans and the vegans and these guys in the Animal Rights Action Network, they'd probably be happy, I don't know, to have the house on the street full of rats walking around, and rats and mice. Why not? Because it's all life is sacred. It's quite ridiculous in my opinion. In India and places like that, they do actually have rats running around them in the temples. So that's a choice you make. I leave you with a little glimpse of that everyone on the internet has seen. It's just that how life really is. If we didn't kill animals to eat, animals do it to each other, as per this clip that I will close on. It's called evolution. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.
Bite to the neck, and the new matriarch is dead. The day belongs to the lions.